Hello again. I'm Words here, and I'm making a game. I've got a few of the variables in for making items. It's just a bunch of lists, just one for each stat, and then basically there's an ID for each item. That's the idea anyway. This is all going to be incredibly complicated, and I'm not going to work on it anymore for a while. It's not entirely important at this point. I can kind of trick it and just tell it like, yeah, item 0 is totally a bow, and not really worry about what the stats are or anything, just to get ranged weapons working. I'm not going to work on that yet. I might have time later to work on it, but that's assuming that I actually get what I'm going to be working on done, which I don't know if I will. What I want to do instead is... no, not that. I was going to go ahead and make sneak work. And the way it works is, as long as you're not in the visual range of that character and already not already seen, then you'll be able to sneak up on them. The problem is how I'm going to make that work. I have a few ideas. I'm going to open up Paint so I can illustrate, because I have some ideas on this. Like, okay, let's say that we've got, here's your guy. Okay, so it's easy, like with, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, if any of your guys sees a enemy, if any of your guys sees an enemy, and we're ignoring the whole sneak part where he's like maybe sneaking up on him, behind him or anything. We're just say he sees him, just in a discussion, and obviously that'll make him visible to you, the player. And this guy over here, technically can't see him. Say he's even failed the sense check to see if he can hear him, but it doesn't matter because you can see him and you could tell the guy to turn around and look at him. And I think it would be essentially unfair for the AI if you couldn't actually, if they couldn't see your guys just because, if even when just one of them sees them. So if like this guy sees this guy, and then this enemy over here doesn't, he's very large. If this enemy over here doesn't see him, so obviously it doesn't really matter. I don't like, and what my point is that essentially I might actually have maybe like a list for like this is a list in each character, like there'd be one of these for each of these, and it would actually have each of these would actually point to whether or not they're visible to a team, right? So like if this is these bad guys, there might be other bad guys, like on a different team. These guys might be fighting with these guys as well as your guys. I don't know yet. I don't know if that stuff will even be possible, but it's better to have the infrastructure ready to make it work if I want to. But and I could have each of these would be like, this would be team. The problem is, I guess I would actually have to include visibility to your own team in that list, which wouldn't really make much sense, but it'll have to go in. And I'll have to figure out, I also have to actually go through after I've made all of the characters in the room and actually add this in after, because that's the only time that I'll be able to tell how many teams I have to actually worry about. But because if these guys are team 0 and these guys are team 1, well, it's the only way it'll make sense. But I'll put, this will be, like true or false as far as visibility to a team. And if it's true for an enemy, then they'll become visible. If it's true for your characters, they'll simply be aware of their existence. I'll figure out exactly how that works out as far as actual AI behavior later. For now, we'll just make it so it works, at least for enemies. So what we'll do is I'll add the infrastructure for it with some variables. Where'd I actually put, like, let's say, oh, let's put it anywhere, any old where. Next to view cone, that makes sense. Because this is so important where I put it. That's how programming works. So let's see. It's got to be like visible is actually an existing variable in GameMaker, so I can't use that. Let's say Visi. Yeah, sure, Visi. So Visi 0. 0 is well, I guess we'll say false for that, like that. That's just a placeholder because the game is actually the thing that's going to add it in after it's created them. So it's going to it's gonna create all these characters, and then it's got to. Do I have a var vars? Let's just do this. There. Those are variables that will be destroyed at the end of the script, if you didn't know that, because that way they're not taking the space, but they can be used. For I equals 0 less than we'll do team. Well, we know that there's only 2 teams, so we can just go ahead and quickly make this really for each one. We'll go through each team and make, yeah, okay, so I guess we have to do, well, here, I'll do it this way. It'll be better in the end. Make 2 variables. We'll say, we'll go through the number of teams. So I keep track of the number of teams, right? Teams I is plus equals 1. 1j is less than or equal to, oddly enough, team. Maybe I should pause for this. Okay. It goes through each and every character in the game, or at least well, in the battlefield anyway, and adds says that that team cannot see you. Check, done, super cool. And then here's how I'm going to do it. Like I said, I could explain this and then more visualization. Let's see. I'm going to explain this, and then I'm probably going to pause to do it, and then I'm going to come back and explain what I did, probably. Let's see. Okay, so we got a character, and here's what we're going to be doing. It doesn't matter, which way he's looking, because we're assuming that he's not able to see it, but wow, I cannot draw shit on this thing. There, it's a little better. See, this is like, okay, this is essentially, we're calling this the hearing range for the character. I don't know, I might actually do multiple circles, like rings, multiple layers of this. I don't know, and the size might depend on sense. I have no idea how it's going to work, actually. Not a clue. But the idea is that when an enemy crosses that line, that's when this guy will do a sense check against his ability to sneak. So, and then what will essentially happen, okay, let me just go through this like step by step. Okay, so it starts out, in fact, that this guy is invisible, right? The player can't see him, because he's somehow gotten behind your guys. And they'll probably, if I have, once I've got the full version of GameMaker, I'll be able to make them do cool stuff like fade away, and fade back in when they come into visible range or whatever. But for now, they'll just sort of pop in and out of existence. I've never really been able to talk for these, have I? Let's see. So as he crosses the line, the sense check occurs, and if it's successful, that guy becomes visible to that team. And what'll happen for enemies is they'll literally just switch on visibility for them. It might have to be a separate variable. I'm pretty sure other things happen when you turn on visibility. Like I don't. They might become non-solid. No, I think they're just invisible. I think they're still solid, even if as long as you have solid checked. I think it's still solid, even if visibility is unchecked. So I'll start by doing that, and if it screws it up for whatever reason, I'll fix it. But yeah, so it'll turn on visibility for him, or if he fails to check, it won't. But he'll go into appearance, and he'll stay like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to also have a counter. Basically, it'll be unseen. I don't know, whatever I end up calling it, and it'll go down. Here's an arrow for down, because I haven't been drawing anything, so I haven't actually been seeing anything. Because I might as well be still frame here. That's a shit arrow. It's an awful arrow. But when that counter reaches 0, it'll become visible again. Essentially, as long as it isn't checked, there aren't any successful. Every time there's a successful, let me rephrase this. Every time there's a successful sense check, or it enters into the visual range of a character, it will that counter will be reset, so that it continues to be visible. and then when it reaches 0, which means that it's been unnoticed and unseen for a while, it'll disappear again, and it'll be able to move around unseen. Hopefully I'll be able to get the AI to behave in such a way as to make it take advantage of that. I'll try to make it so that it kind of path finds, around the sense area until it needs to move in for a strike or whatever, and try to take advantage of sneak attacks. But for now, I'm not going to really put in any real AI to it. It's just gonna be the circle. I'm gonna make it so that each character tries to check to see if they've hit that, and then when they do, they'll do the sense check, and we'll go from there. So for now, let's add in a script. Like I said, I might end up pausing this, but let's call it. Let's make the script for. It's really all it's going to be is a check of distance, but I'm going to have to be able to do this. Let's just say in sense range. Let's call it, and this will return true if the character is in. If character 1 is in the sense range of character 2, I suppose. Yeah. So what this script ought to do is make it so that basically it returns if the character 1, actually the way I've got it set up, if essentially if the second character entered is within the hearing range of the first character, and the sense check is successful, it'll return true. Otherwise false. Yeah. So that means, well, not this. Actually, this isn't in sense range. This is it's called sense check, I guess. I don't know what else to check it. So then, what'll have to happen is I'll have to go through and put it into the character. Actually, it's right here. There's actually one more variable I have to put in that I forgot to. That's the timer. Busy timer, let's call it. And I don't know. I'll have to set a let's call it busy time. Is let's say 50. I don't know. It's just an arbitrary number. And this is the one that counts down. There. Then what we'll do is we'll change it so that down here where it says, okay, then we'll change it so that right now what it does, it says if in view busy well, let's see. Busy? Yeah, it's just busy. So we have like. So I guess what it would be is busy for the team that is seeing them, which would be this guy's team, right? It's checking for him. So it would actually be. Yeah, it would be game.team. I might pause for this too. I hope that I can actually make 30 minutes before I have to go to work. If I keep pausing. I'm going to have to pause though, because I can't really think of anything else to say about it until I'm done. I got a little overzealous on this because I actually need to, I only wanted to actually do the check once the character hits that range, not any time they're within it. So what I actually need to do is I need to say, well, I need to, let's see. Well, what I can do is, need to change it. So, okay, all I need to do is all I'm going to do is I need to get rid of this part. So I'm just going to do that in there. So there. Yeah, I should do everything. And then I should just change this to 4 and get rid of all this. Because this is actually going to be insense. Let's just call it insense. We'll just have to remember that it's for the range. And then the other part is actually a completely different script. Sense check is actually going to be return. Really rather simple, actually, isn't it? I've gone ahead and just made it so that I have a separate script for that, which is very simple. And then what I need to do is actually make it so that there's actually going to have to be another variable. It's going to have to check to see if it's actually rather what I have to be able to check for is when they cross that line, right? So what I have to do is say it's actually rather confusing, isn't it? Because they're not going to necessarily equal that line exactly, right? I don't want to have to make them keep track of a variable for each and every enemy necessarily. So it's a question of it's when they cross it right then that I want it to do the check, and otherwise I don't want it to do it. So what I could do is I can make it so there's sort of a buffer around it, so that as long as they're within that range, it'll do the check, like then otherwise it won't. Problem is if they hang around in that range too much. If I make the buffer small enough, if I make it just the right size, but then it could depend on the speed of the character, which could be changed depending on various things, and that might not actually work then. I don't want to keep a variable that keeps track of that. I could make it so that they they could keep track of something. Well, no. If let's see. Once they pass it, they only need to do the check once. If it fails, if it's successful, it's not going to be done again. That's obvious. But if it fails, I don't want them to just keep doing it until they succeed. So maybe I put only a buffer like on that end, like I say, if they're past this point, but before that point, they. But then that just makes it so there's like kind of this ring around the character that makes it so that that's where they hear stuff, and they're pretty much always gonna, like they might spend too much time in that little area and just end up being sensed, no matter how low the sense is for the character. What I could do is go ahead and make them keep track of it. Make the game keep track of it. I could say, like, I could make kind of a matrix of who's seen by who, Or maybe I could make it so that each character actually has, like, basically a buffer where, like, well, yeah, this actually makes sense. I hadn't thought of this. Okay, this is actually a good idea. See, okay. Each, for the most part, this won't work really. I mean, I might have to do it. What I'm gonna have to do is, well, actually, yeah, I can do it this way. What I can do is I can have a sense time. This is the this is the amount of time that it like. Instead of making it so like it's still going to be the ring, and as long as they're within that ring, it's going to do the check. Okay, so I could actually put this all back into the one script, but in any case, but it's only going to do it every once in a while, and it's actually going to be a different timer for each team. So let's make it, every, 35. I don't know, completely arbitrary, but don't know why that number came to me. And then do the same thing, sort of like up there with the visible timer. And that check can only be done for each team every 35 steps, like that. And put into the game so that it actually adds it to each character, just like the visibility timer. Make one for each step. God, dumb. Let's see. Not team I.j. sense timer equals there. And then what we'll do, so that way, the idea is, remember how we have the different teams? As this guy walks in, once he crosses this point, he'll be sent. The sense will occur, and then it'll do a timer. And as long as he's within this area, when that timer reaches 0, it'll reset it and also do another sense check. But it'll actually be, and since everyone on that same team, no matter where they are, he can't see him, he can't sense him, no matter where they are. But if this guy over here does manage to sense him, then he becomes visible for this guy too, right? Because he can tell him, and as the player, obviously, he'll become visible, and it doesn't really matter at all. Even if it's an enemy, though, they'll still be, become visible for everyone on the team, even if it's the enemy team. And that means that I can actually just have that one timer for that entire team, because as long as, as long as they're within the sense area of any of your team members. And this is actually kind of, now that I've drawn this in, I noticed something interesting. I hadn't actually thought of this either. There's this area right here. I guess they'll have to be doing 2 different sense checks. It depends, what I had been doing, I was going to say it's going to be that character was going to do the check. That doesn't really make sense. Instead, I guess I'll be the character doing this. These characters doing this sense check, and whatever order they just so happen to be in, it doesn't really matter either way, because even if this guy has better sense than this guy, and the guy is in that area, this is completely off topic, by the way. I suddenly noticed this, but where you have these crossing paths of sense. If this guy has better sense than that guy doesn't, or that guy has some distorted sense, this guy doesn't matter which one actually to actually run his script first for the test for it, because if this guy fails and then this guy succeeds, then it's successful. If this guy succeeds and this guy fails, it doesn't really matter. So it's not really a big deal, actually. What should actually happen is essentially it'll be in whoever runs first, because when you make characters or instances of objects in GameMaker, you have these little numbers attached to them. They're IDs for the instance. They actually change, I believe, if you delete an instance, it removes that instance, and then all the other ones kind of get downgraded. But if it's in between, but that's here nor there. When things happen, they happen in the order of basically this guy goes because he's 1, and this guy goes, he's 2. In each instance like that, and it actually can affect things if you have scripts that start the game, at the start that you want to run, and you have you've made these sometimes they'll make these objects with no without any sprites. They're just there to do things as when the room gets created, that sort of thing. And sometimes I'll have more than one of them, and when I do, I'll have to actually make sure I create them in the correct order if one relies on the other, because one will run, then the next one, then the next one, instead, obviously, because it couldn't run them all at once. That wouldn't make any sense. Something has to take precedence. So, and if you get them if you get that sort of thing out of order, or even with just other instances of objects where they rely on one another, it can be very bad. It can cause problems very quickly. It'll cause your game to crash because it'll not know about some variable that this guy's supposed to create. This guy's run first and try to look at a variable that this guy actually creates, and it'll crash. But yeah. But ignoring that, we know now that we can make this work. It's very simple. It's very simple, really. Very simple. We already did this, didn't we? Yep. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it the character that is doing the hearing, I guess is what you would call it, the sensing, is going to be the one doing the checks, which is also the guy doing the view checks, I believe, so that's cool. So if in view, and we'll say else, which means they're not in view. If in sense, I will say what we're doing is and then we have to give the sense range for the character, which I don't know if I have to make a script. I made a. We were going to. I was considering making it so that I was considering making it so it was based on their sense, like the size of it. Actually, some other things I wanted to talk about, and I might be about running out of time. Nearly, anyway. I'll go ahead and talk about those in a minute, and I'll just wrap this up as quick as I can. And if I can't, then I'll just drop it so I can go talk about this other thing. Sense. Okay, this would be the sense ring, sense circle, sense sphere of sense, dist, I guess we could call it. Sense distance, the distance they can sense. Let's say 80. I don't know. 80 sounds fine. What's really annoying about this, I staved off doing any testing of any of this, but actually I really should go ahead and check to see if it actually works. I say as I do nothing to actually do that. Yeah, I'll do it really, but I don't, oh well, I'll put this in, I'll test it after the video's over. Okay, what I've just gone in is I've added that, and we'll say this there. So I put that in. I'm gonna stop this for a second. I'm gonna check all that off. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna tell you what I've gone and done. I've been dealing with well, here some of the I've been looking at some of the attributes, and I've been thinking about them. I've changed a couple of things from what I was going to originally do. I might have talked about, I believe I talked about more or less at length on what the attributes each do, and I've changed some of them since, so I want to talk about that. Let's see. I changed it. I'm pretty sure I talked about this because I changed it so that there was finesse for damage for ranged weaponry, and skill for bonus to crit damage, or well, bonus to ability to crit, actually, chance to crit. But I've changed it so that finesse also changes. For one thing, finesse is everything to do with ranged weaponry. It's your bonus damage and also your range with ranged weaponry. And and here's where the difference comes in. What I've done is I thought about how you have those things separated out. I'd had it so that whoa, that does not work. Let's try this. Let's go back to normal. I think it was visible before, wasn't it? Zoom setting is not fully supported. Please reset. Super K. Can I zoom from here? Oh well, whatever. In any case, that was dumb. Well, that's all for today. Oh, just kidding. I'll finish this. Good night, folks. Finesse is actually now affects both of those things, and range is gone because I had those separated out because I wanted a separate skill for thrown weaponry. I don't know why. I don't know why I wanted that so badly. I decided it was dumb. So actually, finesse does let you shoot farther and do more damage with, like, bows, for instance, and it lets you throw throwing knives and that sort of thing farther. But the damage bonus from finesse is lost beyond the base range of a thrown weapon, which means that, and the reason for this is thrown weaponry, their advantage is that they do a lot more damage and crit more than like bows and arrows and that sort of thing. But they have a shorter range, and when unlike with bows, they lose all your damage bonus from finesse after that range, so that means that it kind of balances out, so that if you use them at a long range, you'll actually not do anywhere near as much damage as if you're really good with bows when you use those. Sorry. Okay. And I'm hoping that'll work out better. It seems like a better idea than what I was doing before. It certainly makes more sense. And another thing is, somebody had mentioned the one and only comment I've ever gotten said that range should be based on strength, which isn't really. It makes sense when you think about it. You're able to pull the bowstring back farther. You're able to throw harder, and that's fine from that sense. But from a gameplay sense, it makes absolutely no sense, because it's not going to. It's going to be make it so that a ranger, or a rogue who might be good with bows or throwing knives, shouldn't have very much strength. They shouldn't. It's just it's a part of their part of that class, and they won't. In which case, and if strength were what affected range, then they wouldn't be very good with their main weapons. On the other hand, big strong guys, barbarians or whatever, might use big weapons that are melee. They aren't going to be using ranged weaponry, except unless I did it so that strength was actually what affected that, in which case they probably would. But I don't think that makes sense. And if you want to go ahead and put some sense to it, imagine a super strong guy breaking his bow in half, trying to pull it back, or imagine finesse as the ability to use the bow or the throwing knife. And then I'm gonna stop, because I'm over 30 minutes this time. These have been getting longer and longer. I kind of hope to cap it at the very most at 30, but oh well. So next time I'm going to be. I'm actually going to do these a little out of order, because I'm doing this one after some other stuff I did. But I think I'm going to go ahead and put it back so that this is after the last thing I did with this game, and I'm going to do some other stuff on for the next 3 episodes. That should be the end of next week. Well, this week that you're watching it on, and then the week after that I might do a different game altogether again. But we'll see what happens. So until next time, subscribe to find out what it is I'm talking about right now that I'm going to be doing. That's going to be different, because different things are cool. And then also, I don't know, you can, at your discretion.